Good morning. Hope your Thanksgiving was fantastic. I don't know what word to use for that. Hope it was all you dreamed it would be. Hope dreams literally came true this Thanksgiving. Thanks for being here. I know this weekend gets busy. I know it's a crazy time of year, and so thanks for being here this weekend as we continue, and we're going to finish up this Stressed Out series. And we were playing games over Thanksgiving with our family. It's something we do, and we play a lot of games around our table. I'm sure you're the same way. If you ever play games with Miss Bracy, for instance, she cheats, and that's just something to know, just up front. Just want you to be aware. Mama Bracy is known to cheat at games. And if she isn't cheating, it's only because her husband has beat her to it, and he has already cheated the game at that point. So, but we play a lot of games, and we were playing like Heads Up. Does anybody play Heads Up on our phones? We were playing that game. We were playing some different games, and we play card games quite a bit. We were playing at one point Uno with our kids, which is like the Christian card game, right? Because there was a time where we weren't allowed to play with cards at all. And this one doesn't have any jacks that are one-eyed or any kings on it. There's no gambling with Uno, so we're in the clear here. And so we were playing Uno around our table, and my wife, she started singing. And you know these people that they always have a song for every occasion. Well, for some reason, my wife decided it was Kenny Rogers time. And at this moment where we were playing the Christian poker, it was time to sing The Gambler. And so she starts singing it, and she's singing it in front of, and she's like, you know, if you're going to play the game, boy, better learn to play it right. And then she starts into the chorus thing. You got to know when to hold 'em, know when to fold 'em, know when to walk away, know when to run. And then she goes, you got to count your blessings. We're singing. And I was like, did you say blessings? She's like, yeah, it goes, you got to count your blessings. I was like, no, honey, no, you got to count your money while you're sitting at the table. She's like, it's not blessings? I was like, no, this is how you know you've been in church too long. Is when you sing, you've got to count your blessings in a song called The Gambler. No, you don't have to count your blessings. You count your money, sweetheart. And so she was like, but if you're like us, if you're like me, you grew up in this church thing like since the day you were born. Like you've been a part of this forever. And if you're like me, like you've been around it maybe too long, to the point where you start saying things like count your blessings. You've been a part of this for too long. Maybe you've been a part of this forever. Maybe you're on the other side, like maybe where you're just checking this out, and church and religion, all these things are kind of new to you. Maybe you're on the side of it where you're more like the guy who sings The Grinch, and you don't want to touch it with a 39.5-foot pole. Like you'd rather stay as far away from this church religious situation as possible. And understandably, wherever you're at in that spectrum, I think we could all agree there are times, and we're going to turn the corner in this series a little bit today, because there are times where religion can stress us out. Where religion and trying to keep up with everything and trying to check all the boxes, it can stress us out. Now, if you're like me, you've been a part of that, where you feel like there's a stress on you from like all the time, where you feel like somebody's watching you. You got to do the right thing at all the right times. Again, you got to check all the boxes. You got to follow the rules and the regulations, and therefore this religious thing becomes something that stresses us out. And that's the way I grew up. That's the way I was kind of raised, was that way. But Jesus himself doesn't necessarily want that for us, right? There's a lot of people who want that for us. But Jesus himself doesn't really want that. We see this in Matthew chapter 11. That's where we're going to be today. We're just going to look at 3 simple verses. But Jesus, he really, in Matthew chapter 11, it's like he's writing his elevator speech as to what makes him different than religion. You guys know what the elevator speech thing? So if you're pitching your business, if you have a business or you have something that you need to tell somebody about, they say, write an elevator speech. It's like if you were to get on the elevator with somebody, they were to ask you about your business, and you had a 30-second window with them where they're trapped on the elevator with you, and you tell them about your business. And it's like one of those things where you condense everything down to 30 seconds to tell them about who you are and why you matter. Jesus is like writing that right now. I remember I had to write that for Restoration, because the first time somebody asked me, they were like, so you guys need money? And I was like, oh, yes, yeah, uh-huh. And they're like, so tell me about your church. And I was like, it's awesome, I think. I mean, it's going to be awesome. And they're like, well, why are you starting a church? Because God said to. And that's all I got right now. And they're like, no. So I had to learn like how to write an elevator speech for what a church would be. For us, like if I were to sit there with somebody and in 30 seconds tell them about what makes us different, that we're a community that wants to bring the kingdom of heaven to earth. That means where things are broken, we're repairing them. Where people are hurt, we're helping heal them. You know, making that out of culture, where we're relevant to our culture, where we live life in community and we lead people to Christ ultimately. I was like, these are the things I had to learn how to tell people about our church and what made us different. And you have to write this elevator speech, and Jesus is like doing that. He's sitting there with his followers, and he's telling them, here's what I want you to go tell people about me and about this new thing, because it's not the same as the religion that you've always known. It's not the same thing. He's like, so I want to tell you this elevator speech to let people know when you go out, when you're talking to people, here's what it is that I want you to tell them about me. Here's what I want you to tell them that makes us different, that makes this thing different than the religion that they're so used to. So he comes up with this line, and this is a brilliant line. It's in Matthew chapter 11, verse 28. He says this, he says, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Man, that'd be a good song for somebody to write, huh? It'd be really catchy, I think. Maybe somebody should write something about like laying down your burdens and laying down your shame, and all who are broken, lift up your face or something. Man, I'm good. I'm on a roll today. So he says, come to me, all who are burdened and weary, and I'll give you rest. Now notice, this is really what sets him apart. And he says something really interesting right off the bat. He says, come to me. Now notice what he's not saying. He's not saying come to the temple. Come to the religious establishment. We'll find you there. We'll meet you there. And then we'll sort things out once you're inside the temple. Once you've paid your alms and you shook hands and kissed the right babies, then we'll talk about healing this situation. Then we'll get you fixed up. He doesn't say that. He says, come to me. Just come to me. And then he defines his target audience. And he says, all who are burdened and weary. His target audience is not what the religious people are looking for. Even today, guys, let's not kid ourselves. In the church today, our target audience is like really good people. You know, like people who have like the 3 well-behaved, well-dressed kids who get in their SUV and they drive it back to the suburbs where they live. We're looking for those people that just don't know Jesus that well, or maybe don't know him at all yet, but they look the part and they have it all figured out. That's our target market. Like, we're just trying to make like good people just a little bit better. Like, you look the part, you kind of act the part, but we just need to like insert a little bit more Jesus in there, and then we'll call it a day. That's usually our target market, right? And Jesus, he's saying, no, I'm not looking for that. I'm not looking for people who are like just a little bit shy of it. I'm not looking for the people who are like really good people all the time, and they've done all the right things, and they recycle, and they drive their Prius, and they care about the earth, and they care about their family, and they've got it all together. He's saying, no, I'm not looking for just those people. I'm looking for anybody who is weary, who is burdened, anybody. And so he opens this door up to this target market that's really not popular in the day. It's not popular today. All who are weary and burdened. Because Jesus didn't come to make bad people good. He didn't come to make good people a little bit better. He came to make dead people come to life. And that's every single one of us. So he doesn't come to just say, let's make you a little bit better. Let's just tweak a few little things. He's saying anybody who is weary and burdened. He's talking about like the people who like putting the Pop-Tart in the toaster in the morning is going to wear them out. Like, I don't know if I can do this today. That's all I can take. It's those people who are like, if I have to like do one more load of laundry, I'm going to lose it. You know, he's looking at those people. The people who like getting here today, getting in a car, getting to a church, that's too much for them. It's like, I barely will make it. Getting to work, getting kids to school. Those people who are weary and burdened, that's who he's looking for. And the truth is, if we're honest with ourselves, that's every single one of us. If we're honest, he's not looking for people who put up a good facade. He's looking for people who are honest with themselves and say, man, I am worn out and I am burdened. I have things I'm carrying that I don't think I can carry anymore. I have things that I'm carrying that are just wearing me out. That's who he's looking for. So he defines this target market. He says, I'm looking for the people who are weary and burdened. And then he makes this promise that just is fantastic. He says, and I will give you rest. I'll give you rest. Now, that's a big deal. Because to be honest, religion is not known for giving people rest. It's not known for that. It's kind of known for the other side of things. It's not known for giving people rest. He's saying, I will give you rest. I read a book a while back, and it was by this guy named A.J. Jacobs. And he did a year of living biblically. And he took the entire Bible, and he went through it and found all of the laws in the Bible. Now, he counted about 1,600 suggestions, laws, rules, regulations. He counted about 1,611 at the time. And he took all of them and he decided to live his life that way for 1 year. Now, A.J. Jacobs said, I did not really grow up religious. He said, I'm a Jew, but I'm a Jew in the way that Olive Garden is Italian food. Like, yes, yeah, in theory, yeah, it's Italian food, but let's not kid ourselves, right? And so he said, I took this idea, and for 1 year, he said, I was going to live my life according to the Bible. So he lives in New York City, so he immediately had to buy a robe, as it was said in the Old Testament, as it says in Leviticus, that he had to wear a white linen robe that was not mixed fibers. It had to just be one fiber. So he had to find somebody who could make him this robe. And he wore this robe around New York, and he started to grow his beard because you're not allowed to cut the corners of your beard, which I haven't. And so you're not allowed to do those things. He had all these regulations. He said, now some of them really got in the way of life. You know, he was like, there were things where it was fine. I could wear the robe. It was fine. But he said, you know, for instance, men are not allowed to sit where women have sat. So he would bring his own seat on the subway, and he would put that down because he didn't know where a woman had sat before. So he would sit his own seat in the middle of the subway and sit down with his robe and with his sheep. He carried his staff quite a bit. He walked through the streets. You're not allowed to touch a woman who is menstruating. He didn't know who that would be. So at Starbucks, he had to be like, he'd give him cash and then just be like, can you just put the change on the counter and I'll just sweep it over here in case I accidentally touch you? He had all these things he had to worry about. In fact, at one point, he carried rocks in his pocket. He carried these little stones in his pocket in case he ran into an adulterer, because you're supposed to stone adulterers. And so he just got these little tiny pebbles. He's like almost like what you put in a fish tank. And he put them in his pocket. And he said he walks around. And there was a day where he ran into a man. And the man asked him, he was like, you look weird. And he was like, yeah, I'm living biblically. And he actually said to him, he said, you know, there's all these weird rules. Like, for instance, I have to stone an adulterer. And the guy goes, I'm an adulterer. He was like, oh, man, I haven't met one yet. And he got all excited. He was like, I reached in my pocket, and I tried to get the rocks out, and I held out the rocks. He's like, as I held him up, the guy stood there for a second, and he was like, I'm going to have to stone you. The guy was like, you can't stone me. He was like, I have to. And the man was like, please don't stone me. He was like, I have to stone you. I'm living biblically. And the man took his hand and hit the rocks, and he got stoned himself. He's like, I carried those rocks for like 6 months. And so... But as weird as it is to read, and you can read his misadventures, they're great, of living biblically, living that every single day. As much as that seems inhibitive and difficult in our lives, it was the lifestyle of the people of Jesus' day every single day. There were 613 laws in the Talmud, which would have been the central teaching of the Jewish faith. 613 laws. Now, 365 of those were do nots, things you should not do. The other 248 were things you should do, things to do. And these were divided up, but there were tons of laws regarding everything you could imagine. There were laws about what you could eat. For instance, you could not eat, and this was probably a handy law, you could not eat a worm that you had found in the fruit you were eating. So if you're eating fruit and found a worm, you should not eat that worm. It's against the law. It probably still should be, to be honest. I don't know why we got rid of that one. That seems pretty handy. Some laws were useful. On the flip side, you could not eat insects unless they had jointed legs for hopping. So locusts, go for it. Grasshoppers, go for it. But make sure they have the right jointed legs before you eat them, okay? Otherwise, they don't crunch as good. Right? And there were laws like this. There were tons of laws. There were the laws about how you got your hair cut. There were laws about how you treated your employees. Tons of laws about what you could eat. Tons and tons of laws. In fact, the law about the Sabbath, the day you're supposed to rest. You couldn't walk for more than about 1,200 yards, about 2,000 steps. You couldn't walk for more than that. Even their rest was regulated by religion. It wasn't a fruit of a relationship with Jesus. It was a consequence of religion, even their rest. And Jesus is saying, no, I want your rest to be a fruit of your relationship with me. You should have rest. So come to me. But we're not used to that. And see, what happens is when we start to let ourselves worry and get stressed out, when we're in this place where we get so worried about all these laws and all these rituals and all these regulations, we get so worried about these things and we get so stressed out. And stress works in the context of religion. Stress works with religion, but it doesn't work with relationships. Because when you're worried, it communicates a lack of trust. It communicates you don't trust God. You don't trust his hand. You don't trust his provision. It moves us into the wrong role. This year, my daughter, she went to kindergarten, and we were kind of excited to see how she did with that, right? It's always a new adventure. You're like, how's she going to like kindergarten? So she went to kindergarten. She's a quiet gal. She's our introvert, but she seemed to really enjoy it, and she liked the structure of the class a lot. She liked that there was a lot of structure, that it was a lot of hard work, and she really enjoys that kind of thing. So she was there at school, and we were asking her almost every day, like, how are you doing? Are you liking this? Are you not liking this? And checking in with her. And being Jane, she would be like, it's good. And that was like our whole conversation. Now, Oliver, if you ever ask him how school is, he will tell you all about it. Everything. Jane, not so much. Just, it's good. And we're like, man, does she like school? Well, one day she got home and she went to her room and Oliver came in to play with her. And before we know it, we hear Jane teaching Oliver what she learned at school. And she's got Oliver somehow sitting on a rug as she sits in her little IKEA chair, looking down at him and reading him books that she does not know how to read. Ironically, Oliver does. And he's correcting her. But she's reading him books. I don't know if she drugged him. I don't know how she got him to sit down that long. It was awesome. And she's reading him books. And so we go inside in the room. And we're like, Jane, are you teaching Oliver? She's like, yeah, we're playing school. And so after that, we made a clip chart. And she does this thing at school where she has a clip chart where there's like purple and there's blue and then there's green, and green's good for the day. If you end on green, that's good. But if you go above that, if you get blue, that's like really good. Our deal is she gets a milkshake for that. But she's doing too good at school now, so we're going to have to just bump that up to purple. But purple is really good. And then down below that, you've got your yellow and your red. You don't want to end on those at the end of the day, right? You have to go to bed early in our house. But she makes a clip chart and she hangs it on her bookshelf of all these pieces of construction paper. And then she takes clothespins, and we write names of Oliver and Daddy and Mommy and Clifford and Nemo and Rapunzel, and we have the clips on there, and all day long she's teaching school. She's moving these clips up and down, and she's telling us how we're doing at life. We really appreciate that. It's nice to know how you're doing. I've been in trouble more than once. I'm going to be honest. Had to go to bed early. It wasn't the worst. So she's been teaching this school thing, and it's fun when she's doing that. It's fun when she's living life like that. Like, it's fun to watch her take this ownership of her brother and teach him things. But there's also times, as you know, if you know how siblings work, where suddenly Jane starts to take over, and she starts telling Oliver things that do not matter and are not her business. And suddenly it's her job to tell Oliver how many chicken nuggets he needs to eat before he can have ice cream. Or it's her job to tell Oliver when he needs to go to bed. It's her job to tell Oliver when he's acting out, when he's acting irrational. And since she is all of 20 months older, she knows, right? And there's those moments where you have to be like, Jane, babe, just let us be the parents, right? Just let us be the parents. You go on and enjoy your life and just be a happy little 5-year-old. Don't worry about your brother. Just let us be the parents. And I feel like that's what happens to us sometimes. When we get stressed out, especially when it comes to religious things, we start to try to take things into our own hands. We start to try to earn our salvation. We try to earn our way into good graces. We try to earn our way into love from God. And I think he's going, no, wait, stop. Let me be the parent here. Because time and time and time again in the Bible, you are called my child. Take on the role of child. You be the child. You stop worrying about things that don't concern you, things that are out of your reach, things you can't do anything about even if you wanted to. Let me be the parent. And we get things out of whack like that, don't we? And the problem is, it's not just one-sided. The problem is when we try to earn those things, when we try to manipulate those things so that we check all the boxes and we do all the right things, we are trying to prove our worth to our God, who is our parent. And as a parent, what do? You just love your children. You just love them. It doesn't matter what they've done, what they haven't done. You still love them regardless, right? And I think God's saying, just let me love you. Just let me be the parent here. Stop trying to earn your way into this. But that's what religion teaches us. And Jesus is saying, no, I don't want to be a part of a religion here. I want to have a relationship with you. I want to give you not stress, but I want to give you rest. And then he moves on to these really brilliant words that you've heard before, I'm sure, if you've been around church. He moves on to these last 2 verses where he says, so take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. So he finishes up his elevator speech with these 2 lines. He says, take my yoke upon you. Now, a yoke at this time, it's something that a rabbi would have had. A rabbi was known to have what was called a yoke. A yoke was how that rabbi interpreted the scriptures. So if he read that Talmud or he read the Pentateuch, he would have read this Torah and he would have taken in the information, taken in all the words, and then his yoke was how he lived it out. So the way he acted, the way he lived was his yoke. And he's saying the way that I interpret the scriptures, the way that I take in all these laws, the way I take in all these rules and regulations, the way that I see all those is the way that I'm going to live them out. And the way I'm going to live them out is not difficult. It's not to burden you more. It's to make things easier. It's to make this better for you. My yoke, the way I live, is easy. My burden is light. He pushes this whole different agenda. And the yoke is something that every disciple would have picked up on. Anybody who is anybody would have been watching this rabbi to see how he lived out his yoke. There's actually stories of still rabbis who take their disciples everywhere to see how they live their yoke out, to see how they act when they're living out their yoke. In fact, it's not uncommon for disciples to literally follow their rabbi even into the bathroom to see how he lives out his yoke in the bathroom, apparently. I mean, it's not uncommon. This really happens. There's an old phrase, Yoz ben Yoezer, where the rabbi would say, Yoz ben Yoezer, which means cover your feet with the dust from my sandals. As I walk, I'm going to be kicking up dust. You need to be so close behind me that you watch this yoke played out, because it's so important for you to see how I live. And Jesus is saying, the way I live is easy. The way I live will bring life, will bring rest to you. A few years ago, for Christmas, I got a really odd gift. My wife, I was running a lot at the time. So my wife, she got me these running shoes. And Tom's doesn't make running shoes. So they're made by Nike. But she got me these running shoes. And inside the running shoes, she was at the store. They said, do you want socks with that? And she was like, yeah, I want socks with that. So she got me some socks. So the socks are Nikes as well. Now these socks, they came with... The socks that she got me, they're these. They look like this. And they're fine. I don't wear socks a lot, if you know me. So these were new, and it was kind of weird. They're like cotton on your feet, which feels weird. She got me these socks, and they're fine. Like, they do the job, right? But, and she was like, they said these are good for running. And I was like, okay. I thought all socks were good for running. I didn't know there were, like, bad socks for running. She's like, they said they were good for running. So she got me these socks, and she got me a lot of pairs of them. I still have tons of pairs of them. And the thing about these socks that really set them apart is that for some reason, some guy at Nike thought, what if we sewed an orange L on one sock and an orange R on the other sock? Some genius out there thought this was a really great idea. And so they put an L on this sock right here. There's an orange L. And on this sock, there's an orange R. Now, I've looked at the socks. I can't tell if there is any difference between the L sock and the R sock. I have no idea. I have not been able to find a visible difference between the two socks. I have not run faster. I have not jumped higher. I have not gotten better at sports since wearing the socks. All I have done is increase my laundry time by 5. Because I have to find the L and the R socks every single time. Because if I go out in public and I have 2 L socks on, you know what kind of loser you are? That's why they have L's on them. I was like, I can't do this. And so I now have to find an L and an R sock every single time. I have to pair them up with the other L and R sock, and get this. Then they started making black ones. They started making newer ones. There's newer models of this sock because you know how we're always improving the sock technology in America? You know, of all the things we need to worry about, let's improve the socks. Now, I know we got that cancer thing going on, but have you guys seen the socks from last year? Embarrassing. So they keep improving the socks, and now I've got all these new pairs of them with L's and R's on them, but I have to find not just the right pair of socks that go together, but the right pair of socks that have the right L and R on them. It's completely arbitrary, but man, does it add stress to my life so much. Seriously, this morning I went to get these socks out. I picked up 2 R's. Oh man, it was almost disastrous. It's like having 2 shoes that are tied at the wrong tensions, you know what I'm talking about? Where one shoe's just a little bit tighter than the other shoe. Your day's ruined. Day's ruined. Just go back to bed. You're not gonna make it. I have these stinking socks, and they've just added stress to my life. Again, I don't know that they've done anything better for me. I don't know they've changed anything for me. They are a man-made invention. And that's all they've ever done for me. And I think sometimes religion is very similar. It is a man-made, synthesized medium between us and God. It is not a relationship. It does not add up to a relationship with Him. It is simply something we have created for ourselves to feel better about ourselves, to put stress on ourselves, to synthesize a relationship with Jesus. But it's nothing more than a synthetic, man-made invention to synthesize our relationship with Jesus. It doesn't always bring us closer. In fact, sometimes it pushes us away. And if you're living with the stress of religion in your life, where you feel like you're not measuring up, where somehow you feel you're not checking all the boxes, where you're not being all you're supposed to be in the religious mindset, let me tell you this. Jesus didn't come here to bring a new religion to earth. He came here to bring a new relationship with His Father. That's why He was here. He was bringing in a relationship, not a religion. And He says in that verse so clearly, He's looking for those who are burdened and weary, because the world is going to make you burdened and weary. You're going to be burdened and weary. He says, but take my yoke upon you, and I will give you rest. Don't take on more burdens. Don't wear yourself out trying to please a religious organization. Take my relationship, and it will give you rest. Let's stand together. We're going to sing this song that we've sung a couple times, and it just, one of the lines in it that I love in the first verse, it just says that I'm grateful to be called your child. If you've been trying to be the parent in this relationship with God, just let's stop that. I'm grateful to be called your child. And we're going to sing about that this morning. The price that Jesus paid for us, the gift He's given to us of rest in Him. Let's pray together. God, I thank you for this time. God, I thank you for sending your son, not to bring a new religion into the world, not to create Christianity, but God, to bring a relationship with you that we haven't had before. Not a guilt-ridden relationship, but God, a relationship that gives us rest. The only place we can really find rest. This world is going to stress us out. It's going to make us tired. It's going to make us weary. We're going to be burdened. But through you, we will have true rest because we're your children. So God, I pray that if we've been trying to run the rat race, we've just been trying to keep up with the Joneses on this, God. Pray you'd remove that pressure from us, remove that stress from us, and allow us just to rest in who you are, rest in our relationship with you. God, I pray if we've not had a relationship with you, we would rekindle that relationship right now. Just simple conversation, simple words that we would speak to you. Maybe for the first time in a long time, we would just speak simple words to you, just saying that we are your children, that we do belong to you. We can't earn that. We don't deserve that, but we are your children. So God, I pray that you would allow us just to speak to you today, to rekindle that relationship. Thank you for the example of your son. Thank you for changing things for us through him. Praise to your name.